executive, which might please some of you out there who are not looking for super flashy phones. And of course, with this vegan leather backing, it is also very nice to hold. There is a curve to the display, and this panel is an AMOLED screen that brings 120Hz refresh rate to this full HD plus resolution. The screen is 6.56 inches, which gives you plenty of room for media and gaming. Now, while higher resolution would have been appreciated, the 120Hz refresh rate on here is something we're seeing more and more of on flagship devices. And also, at 120Hz, they do tend to come in this resolution anyway, at full HD plus, which is more than enough for a lot of you out there, as you tell me in the comments. All of this is powered by the Snapdragon 888, backed by 12GB of RAM and 256GB of onboard storage. The battery is at 4200 mAh, which is not the largest, but it does support 55-watt flash charging with the charger that does come in the box with it. All those specs, of course, present themselves through the software, which is FunTouch OS 11.1. There are a lot of features in FunTouch OS. For example, you get a customizable always-on display, as well as custom wallpapers via this magazine on the lock screen, which will change up the wallpaper every time you go to unlock the device. But of course, it's easy to just get past that using the fingerprint reader. For the most part, FunTouch OS is an accessible Android 11 version. Sometimes it does feel like it needs a little bit more polish, definitely a little bit more streamlining, like in the settings area. My main gripe with FunTouch OS tends to be the bloatware. Even in the app drawer, I have two folders here called Hot Apps and Hot Games that when I click on them, it's literally taking me to an area that's full of ads. It's all just install this app or install that app, and let's be real, none of these I would actually install. Not to mention the fact that when you press and hold on those folders, you don't even get an option to uninstall or remove them. So technically, these Hot Apps and Hot Games ads are a semi-permanent and innate part of FunTouch OS, which is odd to me. But with that, we can get into the cameras, and like I said already, the imposing camera bump shows you all of the capabilities that this Vivo X60 Pro Plus might be able to provide, including that certification from Zeiss. So Vivo have partnered with Zeiss to create this camera package. On the one hand, that means that Zeiss has put a lot of the results from these cameras through their rigorous testing process, and they have signed off on it with their certification. That's why the logo's right here. But also, Vivo have used Zeiss's design philosophy in order to create the lenses that you see here. What we have here is an ultra-wide camera, and this is the one that has the micro gimbal installed. We are now at version 2.0. You have a 50 megapixel Samsung GN1 sensor, that's the main sensor, and then a 5x optical zoom telephoto lens. There is one more lens on here. It is the 32 megapixel portrait lens. It is a dedicated lens, obviously, for portraits, so you can get those soft backgrounds and whatnot. The thing is, I did not get to do a whole lot with the portrait lens here. One reason is because I am shooting by myself, so I don't really have anyone to shoot or to have them shoot me. And the other thing is that in this real-world camera test, I just wanted to focus on mainly the video performance, because that's what enticed me the most about having the micro gimbal 2.0. But with all of the samples that you're about to see, let me know what you think of the quality in the comment sections down below. Drop some likes on this video and subscribe for more real-world camera tests. After all, what we're working with here should be some really stabilized footage. I'm on the wide-angle camera right now, which is also used with that micro gimbal, and hopefully even with this walk and talk that I'm doing using the rear cameras, I can't really see myself, but I'm guessing it's probably pretty stable. And yes, there are going to be some stabilization tests, some walking shots, so you can see what the ultra stable mode provides on top of the already included optical image stabilization. Just like with the previous gimbal system, the ultra stable mode actually crops into the footage a little bit, and it only records in 1080p resolution, and be able to add in some really powerful software-based stabilization on top of the micro gimbal itself. After showing you the quality of the front-facing camera and kind of just seeing how it's not the highest performer, it should come as no surprise to you that I'm using the rear camera, the ultra-wide camera on the rear, as my vlogging tool for these walk and talk shots and whatnot. Right now I'm using the standard stabilization, but let's turn on that ultra stable mode. And here you are with the ultra stable mode, which crops into the frame a little bit so we can really add in a lot of that software-based stabilization on top of what the micro gimbal is doing. So let me know what you think of the stabilization here. I'm walking at the same pace, doing this walk and talk. This is the kind of stuff you would see in a vlog anyway. And if you have stable footage, it just helps make the entire vlog look that much better. So I've just been letting the camera samples kind of flow through. You're seeing a lot of videos, and obviously because the ultra wide angle has the gimbal installed, you can keep it at standard stabilization, keep that wide angle, and still get 4K video recording. So I went to that for a lot of the vloggy walk and talk shots, like I said. And as you're probably going to see as this video goes on, it's when you take these sensors at face value that you can get some of the best results. Unfortunately for Vivo, when they try to introduce some other features on top of what the hardware provides them, that's when things kind of fall apart. Some of these quirks are obvious. If you were to just take pictures, for example, you can use the main sensor as the best shooter, as it has the best depth of field and it also has dynamic range. The ultra-wide angle is going to dip a little bit in the dynamic range, but that's kind of expected with ultra-wide angle cameras, but you'll see it more in video, which is a little bit of a bummer. When you get to the periscope lens, you can go straight to 5 times over the 2 times that is just a crop of the main sensor. And it's above that you get the diminishing returns as expected with the hybrid up to 60 times zoom. There's also a super macro mode, which uses the wide angle lens, makes it double up so you can get really close to any subjects. Which finally brings us to the video shooting experience. Obviously, you're going to be looking at stabilized shots from here on out. I never turned off the standard stabilization, and I will let you know when the ultra stable mode is being used. I think this is the first time in months that we've been able to go behind the bamboo grove here. Kind of nice. New little pathway to be able to walk around under the shade. Also, take a look at this. This is the movie mode, or rather the movie frame, where you can cut off the top and bottom a little bit, get some of those black bars that give you that very cinematic look. It is a setting in the video mode, so you can turn it on basically at any time when you're shooting your regular videos. So with that in mind, why don't we get some good shots using those two things together? The movie frame for a cinematic look, and the stabilization for an even higher quality production looking video. Probably my favorite part about shooting with this phone is the little indicator that tries to guide you as to how to move the phone so you don't overwhelm the stabilization, whether it's the micro gimbal 2.0 in the ultra wide or the more standard OIS built into the main sensor. It works for both. You basically have this dot in the indicator that you have to keep within the inner circle, which obviously means that you have to be a little bit slower with your movements and not just going all jerky like this. That's the point of the gimbal in here, is that it's going to give you smooth movements, but you also have to remember that it is a very small unit. You see, the laws of physics don't mean that you could just take a micro gimbal like this and just go running. There are times when you can do that, but you still have to be cognizant of the type of stabilization you're trying to achieve. It's for that reason that the gimbal installed on this camera is a bit more like a souped up OIS that you would get on other phones. It is an improvement, but it's not going to change the fact that you have to be as stable yourself or as steady yourself as possible. But as you can probably see very plainly in this 4K rendered video, the fact that the ultra stable videos are always at 1080p is the bummer. That means you're already losing detail when in reality, the quality of the lenses or the sensors taken on their own without these other software enhancements are actually pretty good. And I wish that we can keep this quality throughout. Especially with the main sensor, the Samsung GN1 is doing a fantastic job in pretty much every shot that I throw at it. And especially since you have that indicator in the middle, even when you're using the main sensor, it still is teaching you how to be more stable in the first place. So if anything, this indicator is something we should probably see more often, even on more standard optical image stabilized cameras. So while it's pretty clear that the hardware on its own is pretty incredible, it's only when Vivo starts to add these other layers on top of it that things start to get muddled. The micro gimbal is pretty great. Unfortunately, it's put on a wide angle lens that needs a little bit more dynamic range and a little bit more saturation to be truly pleasing. It is nice to use for vlogging and walk and talks and whatnot because the stabilization gives it that higher quality look, but it's still lacking in just some of the other details. Those same details are addressed in the main sensor, but it doesn't have the gimbal. It has standard OIS that still suffers from loss of quality when you turn on ultra stable and it goes down to 1080p. And none of those things are provided to the periscope camera, which does provide that 5 times optical zoom if you do really need it. You probably won't use it too often, and it's still only an 8 megapixel shooter anyway. There are a lot of really fun things you can do with this camera. It provides a lot of modes to have fun with. For example, a double exposure mode that I still can't really figure out what best subjects I could use for that, including myself. And then there's also the night modes that give the ultra-wide in particular a huge boost that it really needs. And the last one I tried was the super moon mode, which literally used the 60 times hybrid zooming in order to get me a shot of the moon while I had the phone on a tripod to do the long exposure. But when you put a phone like this in my hands and tell me that the gimbal is installed so it could help with video capture and whatnot, you know that that's what I want to focus on, and that's exactly what I did in this camera test. Overall, I think that the bits and pieces that are here all are proofs of concept, but they're just not being used to their fullest potential just yet. There are phones out there that in the sum of their parts are greater than the few things that they try to tout, but the Vivo X60 Pro Plus, in the camera at least, is a little bit of the opposite. So the question will be this ultimately: what part of your video content creation process do you want to prioritize? And it looks like no one phone, obviously, has all of the tools that are needed for every single part of the process. Stable and smooth footage? Absolutely, that's what you get in the Vivo. Overall, I still think Vivo is going in the right direction. They have the bits and pieces that are needed in order to create such a compelling camera package. The only thing they have to do is make the sum of its parts better than just the one or two features that they really want to tout. For more real-world camera tests like this, I got so many of them coming out right now anyway, make sure you subscribe to my channel, drop some likes on this video, and then get into the comment sections and let me know what you think of the Vivo X60 Pro Plus. With all that said, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for watching. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.